And we're live. Good afternoon. This is Jim Miller on the Bold Leadership Story Show, live streaming from beautiful Temecula, California. And today we've got a live stream that's going to excite you, and you're going to be able to inspire, influence, and impact your world so much better because we're going to have an amazing conversation with Beverly Jo Lynn today. Beverly is a motivational keynote and TEDx speaker, an author, business strategist, and coach. And I'm going to say a few more beautiful and descriptive words about Beverly here in a second, but I'm going to bring her on so I can embarrass her in person. There she is. Hey, Beverly, how are you?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad you're here. You look great.
Thank you. It almost feels bright and sunshiny with all these shadow boxes on. Hey.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Actually, 2 YouTube channels and Instagram today. So we're all over the place, and we're excited to have you join us. And I'm going to just read a little bit of Beverly's bio here because it's amazing. This is an astute and very learned young lady. And so let me read this. Beverly Jo Lynn is an award-winning international business strategist and leadership mindset coach with 30 plus years of experience. Whether she's picking up fresh ingredients to create gourmet meals, walking Jake the Cabochon, did I say that right?
Yes, perfectly.
Jake the Cabochon, designing her waterfront home. We've got to talk about that a little bit. Nailing the women's leaderboard at the Porsche Experience, or inspiring from the TEDx stage. Wow, that's so exciting. That's something on my bucket list is being on that TEDx stage. They have one here in Temecula. So Beverly brings her dynamic spirit to everything she does. Her energy, passion, and extensive reading fuels her speaking and coaching style, bringing a mix of strategy, creativity, and empathy that helps her clients unlock their potential and inspires transformative results for individuals, teams, and companies alike.
Well, now you've now impressed me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show today, and I'm curious to know. I love your tagline. It's the how happens.
The how happens here.
Here, and that's like boom. How did you come up with that? What is it that inspired you to pull that into the mix?
So honestly, that they came out of a conversation, and someone else spoke the words, and I grabbed onto it. We always say in leadership, especially when you bring in an element of, if you're looking at energy and spirituality and law of attraction, we say, go for your vision and goal and don't worry about the how. But at the end of the day, there is a how that happens. We say, oh, you have to be all you can be, but you also have to do in order to have. And so as part of that be, do, have model, the how happens here. It's a good tagline for a business strategist that is completely committed to seeing the people around her reach their vision. I have a personal belief in me. It was put there in my early 20s, came out of a self-help book I read by J.S. Bach. I don't know if you know, we're going back years.
Bach.
J.S. Bach. He's a leadership sort of guru, but also on the spiritual side of things. And okay. He, one of the things he said was, if you're wondering if you're still useful, look in the mirror. If you're still here, you simply are. You wouldn't be here if you weren't useful. But out of that, sort of developed a philosophy that the vision that you and I are given was given to us because it was believed we could accomplish it, or we wouldn't be here. And so I have great fun meeting with people, clients or peers, and saying, oh, that's your vision. How could we get you from A to Z? So that's a little bit about that.
Where do you find people that you're working with are stuck most of the time? And how do you help them get unstuck?
Wow, I love that question because I think each of us, whenever we're at a place where it's time for us to up level a little bit, we realize that between here and there, there's a tiny obstacle. And we either bump up against it and bump back and say, I guess I wasn't supposed to go that way. Or we climb over it, we figure out how to open the door, and we keep going. And so, yeah, bumping up against, where I find people most commonly stuck, honestly, is, am I worthy to walk through that door? Am I good enough? Am I supposed to do this? What if I get on the other side and I'm not all I was expected to be? Maybe this bump means I've bitten off more than I can actually chew. And so I work with leaders at quite a variety of levels. Because this is business, I'm going to talk numbers a little bit. But if I see someone that's moving from a 50,000 year business to 150, and then to 250, and then to 500,000, when you go through, and I don't mean for a second that we should measure the accomplishment of our lives by dollars, but when you're an entrepreneur and you're growing, you see those as hurdles to jump towards and over. And so when you see yourself coming up against a measure that you've seen someone else do, and you think, yeah, but they're so-and-so, and we realize that we've put them on a pedestal that we ourselves are not on, that is a huge stumbling block. And so helping someone to bring their worth not up to someone else, but so that they can actually see where they actually are, that their accomplishments are enough. Which is kind of fun. When you read my introduction, there's the mundane on there. Yes, I like to go for a walk with my dog Jake. And we just got back one a few moments. The season that we're in currently at the time that we're talking is fall, and so we've got red and yellow maple leaves everywhere. But being able to do that is the same kind of an accomplishment if you're present in your moment as sitting down and changing someone else's life. So when I get to talk with people and help open the door on their own value, usually then they can go through their next step. So yeah, business strategy and leadership mindset, it's hard to separate those out. And I would say to anyone listening, you need a coach that mentors you in both areas, or a coach that mentors you, or two coaches that mentor you in each area. But don't try to do your business strategy without leadership. And don't just be a leader without a strategy either. Do both.
Excellent. There's wisdom there. Definitely wisdom there. What was your story leading up to your TEDx experience? How many times have you been on the TEDx stage?
I've only been, this will be fun to talk about. I've only been on once, and it was literally 5 weeks ago. Like, we're just in the very first
So
month.
it's fresh.
So it's still very, very fresh. In fact, it's not even out yet. So I'll have to come back here and.
Yeah, I was looking for it. It's like, where is it?
Below. Yeah. So things you learn, the TEDx talks go through a review process before they're put out. So, applying and going through the initial interviews to get on the stage is not enough to actually get a TEDx talk out. So I have, what I can say confidently, I have recorded a talk on the TEDx stage. It won't go live on TEDx's platform until they've reviewed it every talk that is put out is reviewed for accuracy. You can't bluff a fact, or they will either edit it out or remove the entire talk. And once in a while, when I was preparing to speak on the stage, I bumped across a couple of TEDx talks that had a TEDx disclaimer on them. This person recorded it, it's out, but the facts don't line up. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'd be horrified if they have to put that disclaimer on mine. So, but it's reassuring. The TEDx talks that you listen to have been reviewed by an entire committee. So mine's in that process right now. It was exciting. It was a massive bucket list item for me. And so it was one of the moments that was really impactful to me was standing backstage where you could look at the back of the TEDx letters. And the stage that I was on, the TEDx letters had actually been weighted so that they could stand upright with sandbags. And so I was looking at the back of the TEDx letters with sandbags, and I thought, wow, this is not just a talk. It's actually like it's a bucket list talk. So it had a really high coolness element to be introduced and step out and stand on the red carpet and, begin sharing. It was really, really neat.
Oh, I bet. That's amazing.
I recommend it. Do it, Jim.
That's one of my bucket list things right now. I haven't done it. I've talked to the people here in Temecula who run that, and you're right. It's a process. A whole year. They take a whole year.
Yes.
And it's amazing, but theirs is. They're all good. They're all good. It's some incredible TEDx talks that are out there. What was it like in that moment for you, managing your mental state, standing there looking at the TEDx backwards with the sandbags, and you're just about ready to go on stage? What did that feel like for you?
Well, it's interesting. It was very different than what I had thought. I thought I would be very casual. And when I stood there and I saw the backs of the letters, I literally, I had already, my palms were already wet by the time I was standing there with perspiration. And, I felt in my stomach this whole weight of, it's not just me representing me, but I'm actually representing a larger organization than myself. That was actually my thought. And, in life, we have a bit of a choice how much we're going to ripple. And I think that when we choose to open ourselves up to be willing to ripple bigger, in fact, ripple so much that we make the other ripples ripple, it gives us a job to do. And so my feeling was, oh my goodness, this is not just me and my business and my clients and the people that I work with, but this is an organization that is trusting me to make a difference. And so it was very weighty in those minutes while I stood there. And I had to really, really focus on my presence and focus on my breathing, because I thought, I'm going to get up there and my voice is going to be this high, because I was literally that nervous. And I was like, okay, drop in. And, fortunately, I don't walk alone. And so I had connected in with people ahead of time, coaches, and I had actually created how will I get present before I walk in. And so I stood there and I felt my feet grounded on that, the backstage floor. I tried to feel, I remember thinking, okay, one of the coaches had said to me, check what one of the ways to ground yourself is check the temperature. Is it hot or cold in the room? And I had no idea. And I thought, oh no, I'm more nervous than I think, because I have no idea what temperature the air is. But thinking through those practical things helped me to, by the time that I walked on, I wasn't shaking. I was grounded. I was breathing. I could talk. And but it was powerful. It is, I think we all should check off more bucket list things. And when we check off a bucket list thing that actually makes a difference, that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Busting through those fears.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Whatever they are. I had one that's actually started this podcast that I busted through. I've been selling my whole career, most of my career. And I was so nervous to speak on live, do a live on, just a Facebook Live. And I would just choke up. I could not do it. And it finally got to a point where it's like, I can't stand not being able to do this anymore. It's like stupid.
Yeah.
But it was fear. It was real fear.
Real fear. I get it. Yeah.
But so Russell Brunson, I remember he said, well, he started doing his lives this way. He would drive to work. He called it a marketing minute. And when he was driving to work, he'd just pop on the phone and do a live while he was driving to work and talk about marketing. And so I said, do 100 of those. And by the end of the 100, and you'll be just fine. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do 100 of them. And I did. And by the first 20, I almost barfed every time.
Yeah.
It was so, but after 20, every day, I do them every day. One, just be consistent with it every day. And just over time, doing a little bit every day.
Yeah.
The fear goes away, and now it's fun. Now I got 3 podcasts, so it's like I'm going crazy with it. I'm like,
no, that's really great. I mean, and I love hearing how you decided to just start and be willing to allow yourself that 1% increase whenever it was going to come. You know, if I start from here, the next step I will be a little better, and the next step will be a little better.
Yeah, and that's what a coach does for you, right? Is having someone on your team that can encourage you, give you some feedback, and is always on your team. Gives you the good news and sometimes the bad news when you need it. And I'm taking that. I would think you're that kind of coach.
I work to be that kind of a coach. I work to be that kind of coach that allows people to be where they are and shows them where they can go. One thing that I thought of when you were talking, it reminded me so going back to the backstage experience, waiting to go on. I have always had coaches. So I have been in sales, or business coaching or running businesses all of my adult life, which now spans multiple decades. And curiously enough, when I was in the backstage waiting to go through the tunnel, and I knew what my initial story was going to be, how I was sort of introducing myself to the audience. And the person that had been my business coach at that time texted me. Now, we haven't been in touch for a little while about business, and we haven't been in touch for a little while personally. So it was really, really random, you could say, if you were the person that believed in coincidences, that the person that had coached me during the time of my first story would message me right at a time when I was about to check off a bucket list item and talk about a time in my life when he had been actually one of my significant business coaches during that time. And, I think of that for each of us. We can't underestimate who is within arm's reach of us at any given point in time. We will find, if we are on our aligned path, that what we need to move forward is within arm's reach always. And during a very difficult time in my life, which was the story I told on the TEDx stage, he and his wife actually were key people during that time in my life, and so it was amazing. It felt like a full circle moment and a reminder that we really don't, whatever your beliefs are, it's hard to fight for the idea that we walk life alone. There's just far too many coincidences that happen. And receiving that text from him while I was waiting, so I was able to send him a picture right from backstage saying, current situation.
All right.
Current That's situation, which is meaningful because he was one of the people that was a key person so that I could take a step many years ago. And the actual story was literally, do you mind if I share a little bit about that story here?
Please, yeah, love it.
So out of the blue, I had gotten what seemed like the flu, and but coming out of the flu, I had no balance and I was stumbling. I couldn't walk, and within about 10 days, I was paralyzed from the waist down, and about 3 days later, I lost the use of my arms, and then after that, started having trouble with diaphragm and swallowing. it was just a real progressive loss of the ability of my brain to send a message and have it actually realized. One of the first days I was in the hospital, one of the doctors that was coming around and, checking what is the status, put his hand about 6 inches above the toes of my feet and said, would you be strong enough to touch my hand? I said, of course. I mean, I was a young 32-year-old. I was strong. I had been running every day. I said, of course I can raise my foot that high. It's okay, show me. And nothing happened. And I had sent the command, but absolutely nothing happened. And so, I try that. And pardon?
How did you feel at that moment?
It felt like falling into a whirlpool. That was the physical feeling. It was like just wow, this is real. Like I'm not just a little bit sick. And by the end of, so when I talk about this couple being part of me taking steps in my life, they were symbolic steps, because at the time I couldn't take any steps at all. And within a week of that, within 2 weeks of going into the hospital, I was on a wait list for a nursing home, and I'd been diagnosed with rapid demyelinating multiple sclerosis, which really there's generally no U-turn from. Now, by 2 years later, they reversed the diagnosis to have been you had essential nervous system virus, West Nile. But in that time frame, it was just wow, you're not going anywhere, like literally. Like I wasn't able, I joke sometimes I wasn't able to tear my own toilet paper. But I was really, really helpless. People, were putting spoons of food into my mouth. It was a very terrifying time. I had 2 little kids, aged 2 and 4, and I was responsible to them. We talk about leadership. Leadership starts here with how we're leading us. And many times we need help with coaching with that. But then leadership goes to that first circle. Who am I first responsible for leading? And it's, our children are right there. How do we be the kinds of people we can be so that they can be who they're supposed to be? And we can talk about clients and impact on stage, but there's literally nowhere we make a bigger difference than in that very first circle around us. And so that was a very big motivator to me to say, wow, how am I going to go forward to this? And back then, so you might just remember back then when we couldn't grab our phone and text anyone because we didn't have phones and we weren't texting, and we were still debating with everybody. It was like, oh, do you have an email address yet? Do you remember these days, Jim?
Certainly. What year was this about?
This would be 2002 actually. So by 2002 we were doing a little bit of things on phones.
Yeah, but I had a rudimentary. I think I still have it. It's this handspring. I had this guy.
Oh, okay.
I had BlackBerry. Remember the Blackberries?
So I had a BlackBerry also. I started with the Fido Hip Top, and then I went to a BlackBerry from that. Yeah. So at this time,
the iPhone and all that.
Yeah.
I had a car phone, for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But texting, if you were doing texting, you probably were a drug dealer because you had one of those pagers on, right?
True story. Well, if you were in sales, you did too. I think those of us who were in sales, we were some of the first to take on technology, because it meant less times when we were standing in a payphone booth with our coins. Anyway.
Oh yeah, that was purgatory right there. That just the young people don't get how that was just so wrong. But.
No, and I mean we grumble about Zoom, but it's nothing like getting on a telephone conference on a phone booth. In the
it's like you don't know who was there last, and it's like, oh my god, and
completely
and then the maps Did you have territory? Did you have maps?
Yes, of course, of
Did
course.
you do the Thomas guides?
Yes, and you know, I mean, I it just cracks me up now. If I glance over at my phone, my kids will say, "Mom, that would be distracted driving." And I think if you had any, if you had any idea what it's like to drive with a map, where you're trying to find your place on a map, that was distracted driving. If there was ever distracted
Oh
driving.
yeah, I was driving with one knee. Had a you know, the car phone had, it was like the old school phones, the one I had, and it had a wire attached.
Yes,
So you had
yes,
the
yes.
wire,
To a
go on,
battery pack.
had the map open. You were driving, and you're and sometimes you were eating at the same time because you had to nourish your body.
Yes, yes, it's true. Well, this was before that, and so someone actually ripped out a couple pages from a magazine and mailed them to me, and it was an article that had been done on Christopher Reeves, and so that was Christopher
Yeah,
Reeves was Superman, and then he was in
neck on a horse,
a horseback riding accident.
riding accident.
Yeah, but he had this belief that our brains were so powerful and so underutilized that if we were using one channel in our brain for one purpose and that channel got cut off, then we should just find another channel. And it sounds really simple, and he didn't completely win with his own body, although he was beginning to win at the time when a really silly thing took him out.
Yeah, he didn't let that slow him down at all. He was in
did.
a wheelchair, and he was talking on stages and doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, he was an incredibly busy man.
Well, he became, I mean, those few years later, he became, you know, the leader that I looked to, you know, intangibly through the news for support going through that time. And I thought, okay, I've seen the MRI scans. I can see why those messages aren't going through, but if there's any way I can get another message through, I will. And, you know, and so, I mean, you know, quick through the end of the story, yes, I'm walking now, running now. I would joke that I can even dance now, but really I don't do that very well. I walk much better. But it's the same principle in our leadership, in our lives. If one path isn't working, there will be another path. It doesn't change the vision. It doesn't change the goal. It just changes, you know, the process of getting there, you know, and the how. So that's been a real impact on my way of thinking through things, and just saying, you know, if one thing doesn't work, there is going to be another thing that will work.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. That's so impressive and in inspirational. Yeah, it's like you didn't let it stop you. A lot of people would have just say, "Well, I'm done. The doctors say I'm done. I don't have anywhere to go. I can't do anything more." Yeah. But what was inside of you that kept you moving forward?
There were two things really. I will never not feel emotion, I don't think. When I remember being wheeled into a consult room with a social worker and whoever else, and I was shown a binder of all the nursing homes that I could choose to go on the wait list for. And it struck me that I might not actually be going home. And
you were what, 32, you said?
I was 32 years old. But wow. What nailed me is one of the women that was in there in the group on this consult said, "Oh, we should probably pick a nursing home that's near a good school so her children can see her at lunchtime." And the other woman said, her kids aren't even in school yet. That might not matter by the time her kids aren't at school age. And it struck me that we were actually talking about me not being there anymore for my children. And it socked me. You know, and her lines just like, it was like, I don't know, being hit with a bucket of cold water, that I mean, I was already having trouble with my diaphragm. So the messages to my diaphragm were already, I had already gone through the consult. If we have to put you on a breathing machine, this is what it would be like. And so it wasn't crazy to sit there and think, wow, what is she saying here? Like, it's very startling to think my children would have to come over from school to visit me. But second of all, this other lady is saying that I might not even be around. And so one of my huge drivers was my children. Our values inside of us are huge drivers. And we experience chaos in our lives when we do not align our actions with our values. We experience huge chaos when we don't align our resources with our values. And if we were to say that our three primary resources are time, energy, and money, if we can turn those towards the values that guide us, and we have that kind of alignment, that's when our impact resonates as leaders. And that's when we're really actually on our path. So then for me, one of my high values was being a leader for my children. That was a driver. Going into the hospital, I had a sales team I was directing, or not directing isn't quite the right word. I was more coaching with them, strategizing with them, supporting them. I had another business that I was running at the same time. I had a third business that I was running at the same time. But all of those businesses' goals were so that I could be a better leader to my kids, that I would be able to put them in private schools was really important to me at the time. That I would be able to do things for them, like, help let them travel, give them braces for their teeth, those kinds of basic things. And so growing the businesses and building connections through them all linked back to my value of being a parent, and linking, I don't think, if you and I were to sit down here and you were to say, well, Beverly, here's my top three values, and I would say, okay, here's my top three values, it doesn't really matter if they're the same or different. Our top values demand from us the largest expenditure of our resources, our time, energy, and money. And so for me, I had very little energy. My income had been self-employed and running businesses had gone, really, really low, really fast going into the hospital. But I did have the time and the willpower. And so I put that into problem solving. And, when I look back on it, I think there must have been a miracle along the way as well. There's about 6% of people that have that illness that recover fully. I got to be in that part of the 6%, maybe a little bit by miracle, but also a lot by just honing in on what was most important to me at that time. And so, you asked me about, what was it like standing backstage, and choosing presence means that I knew what was most important at that moment in time to walk onto stage. But lying in that hospital bed, I also knew what was most important at that point in time. Where will I focus, what I have, and what am I willing to give up? What am I willing to bring in? I was fortunate to stabilize enough that I was home within about a month, in a wheelchair. Like, everything at the house had to change, but I could use my arms a little bit within a month, and a very little bit, but enough to be able to go home. And it was 2 years before I could be in a walker and a cane, and let's go forward from that. So a little bit of a miracle, maybe a little bit of, this isn't really supposed to be your path, Beverly, maybe, and a lot of zoning in what is my highest value, and at every moment choosing to stay aligned with that.
Beautiful.
It's powerful, and I would recommend that strategy to anybody.
having the experience that you have and the perspective on business and the skills to coach, I would imagine that with what you bring to the table for people to coach them is formidable, and powerful. I'm thinking that it would be important for someone to be in a certain mindset, or to be even have become at some level to a point where they're ready for you to be actually fully evolved and not have to go through the experience that you've done. Right. So what they're getting with you is all of that, the perseverance and the vision, the direction, the discipline, the focus, the fortitude, the courage, all of that.
Yeah.
How do they come to the table correctly? Or that's probably not the best word. How do they come to the table to accept what you're able to provide for them?
I think that it's the same as each of us comes to whatever our next step is. I work with a variety of clients, clients that are looking to put on in their first 7 figures together, or clients that are looking to put their first 5 figures together. And there are a lot of similarities between those two individuals. But what leads each of us to success in the moment is saying that in this moment, I will look towards what's most important to me, and I will do what it takes to honor that. What is the next step? And so I think that with my clients, like any one of us who is taking another step into leadership, is that willingness to say, honestly, where I am I right now? What is present for me? And then to look at our vision and say, what do I believe could be present more for me? And am I willing to go through that growth journey to get there? And I think of the story that you brought up a few moments ago. I've done 0 podcasts. I'm terrified. And in that moment, you have a choice to say, okay, I've identified what is and what isn't. What is that I've done 0 podcasts. What isn't is that I would like to have a successful podcast, or 3 or 5 or 7. At that moment where you spell out what is, you have an amazing opportunity to say, will I be willing to do whatever it takes to go one step forward towards my vision? Would I be willing to do that first 10 and that first 40 and that first 100 in order to move towards my vision? So whether you've done 0 podcasts, or whether you've gone on a TEDx stage, or whether you've worked with a coaching client or not, whether you've put out your first challenge, whether you've written your first book, I get to be with clients actually through a lot of those firsts. Writing their first book, I have a client that is ready now to write her 3rd book, but I got to be there for the first book and the second book. But making a decision to move forward always, I don't care whether you're moving from, whatever figures of income, whatever size of house, whatever car, whatever experience, whatever relationship. When you can come present and honest and have clarity on what is now, you have the opportunity to come to that same clarity, what could be. Mm-hmm. And I think we're blessed to be in a time and age where therapy and mental health has been normalized, and where coaching and mentoring has been normalized outside of a sales environment. If you're in the sales environment, you learned early on to mentor with the guy that was at the top of the leaderboards, because that's how you were going to get better. But outside of that, it's really been in this last season of time, and I'm going to say the last decade-ish, that we've really normalized coaching all the way through. And what coaching and mentoring is so valuable for, it says, I don't care what you're looking at. If it's, I want to be better at Italian pasta, or I want to play cello, or, I want to learn my first ballet steps. I want to learn how to do a headstand. I want to learn how to repot an orchid. There's a coach for that. And what it says is that we don't have to walk through our journey alone. But it also honors our vision. Whatever your vision is, that's your next step. And I would hope that you and anyone else that's listening to this, if you have that spark in you that says, I know I'm here now, but I feel I could be somewhere else, honor that. That's a real calling. And becoming present to that will give you the courage to walk towards that. So it really doesn't matter to me, Jim, who shows up on the other side of my screen. We quickly go to be as honest as you can with where you are now. And then be as clear as you can with where you want to go. All right, let's draw out the map. And it's going to be a little bit of mindset, a little bit of strategy, a little more mindset, a little bit more strategy. Sometimes, some midnight text messages that come through to say, hey, what now? Let's go back. What's the strategy that worked well? Let's do a little more of that. That's working. What's not working so well? Let's do a little less of that. So,
excellent. Yeah. So just show up and be ready to be coached. Be open for coaching.
Yep. When you're willing to grow even a little bit, you can grow.
Very cool. We have Cynthia Mannion says hello. Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia.
Do you know Cynthia?
No, I don't.
You and Cynthia need to meet. She's an amazing woman. I was on her podcast not too long ago, and had a blast.
No, I look forward.
Yeah. So thank you for saying hello, Cynthia. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's I love that. It's something that we really have an advantage of in this day and age is how small the world has become in a way that we can reach out and connect in real time globally. I'm up here in Toronto. You're down in Tecumseh. Am I saying that right? See, I'm so far away. I don't even know how to say your hometown.
Little town called Temecula. It's north
Temecula. There you go, Temecula. But we get to have this conversation. It's a really beautiful time, and I think it behooves each of us to take advantage of it. What can we learn? What strength can we take from someone else's journey?
Oh yeah, so an amazing time. I love this medium, but I also love getting together face to face too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about your Porsche experience.
Okay, I can get a little. That was really, really an exciting experience. So, thank you for asking about that.
You were nailing the women's leaderboard at the Porsche experience. So, that paints a picture, but I'm not quite sure what it means.
Have you done a Porsche experience, Jim?
I have not. I don't know what that is.
Okay, so
Porsche to me is a car that goes really fast.
Yes, it is, and yes, it is a car that goes really, really fast. The Porsche experience is like a playground for these cars. And so there's several around the world. If you can go on Google and find the one nearest you, I highly recommend you put it on as an experience that you need to do. And I would imagine that once you've done it once, you might have to do it again.
Yeah.
So it really is a playground.
I'm a scuba diver. I've been skydiving. I've been rock climbing in Belay down cliffs, and it's like I love. And I'm just double black diamond snow skier. This would fit right into my crazy life.
So I've been a black diamond skier once, also by complete accident because I made the wrong turn. But okay. I am still here, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also a certified scuba diver, and I have skydived, but only only one time. Just
Okay, well, you did it. That's the hardest one. The first one's always the most difficult.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. Doing the Porsche experience became a bucket list item as soon as I'd heard about it. In the Porsche experience, it really is a playground for Porsche. Their whole goal is to say to you, this is how much the car can do, so you should probably buy one. That's their goal.
I love it. That's great marketing.
It is absolutely fantastic marketing. So they have, for example, they have this huge circle of polished cement that's wet. And the guide, as you're driving onto it, says, okay, you have to hit this at 50. Oh, I should have sent you a video with me in it. Okay, this is really great. So can you see the drifting that's happening there? Mm-hmm. And so he'll say, for example, I want you to hit this round cement pad at 55 miles per hour, and then hit your brakes and pull yourself out of it. There's another one where you go over a ramp, and as you go over the ramp, and they say, okay, you're gonna hit this at I've forgotten now, so I'm just gonna make up a number, 65 miles per hour. Okay, so you're in the simulator lab. You want the real McCoy there if you can. And as you go over the ramp, there's hydraulics underneath that shoot up, and they shove your car either to the left or shove your car to the right, and then you get to recover from that. There's places where they ask you to move off of, going close to 100 miles per hour, like fast. They'll ask you to slide the car off the road so that 2 of your wheels are in crushed gravel. Well, we all know what would normally happen in any other non-Porsche car when you're going at that speed and you've got 2 wheels on one terrain. There it is right there.
That's the LA one? That's Los Angeles.
So that's the LA one. That's the one that I did. So that long stretch on the bottom left-hand side of it is what's called the launch pad. So right there, yeah. And so on the launch pad there, you put it into launch mode, and then you rev it up to 5,500 miles per hour while you have the brake on. So you can imagine how the car is screaming at 5,500 miles per hour. You pop off the brake, and the car literally, it just feels like it launches down that straight path. And if you can see at the end, look at that tight corner. That is actually not a straight road. That is actually up at an almost 90-degree angle. So by the time you hit that wall, you're driving the wall and coming.
So it's back. Like a Monza wall, like you're going side, like.
Yes, exactly. Crazy. Exactly. So, I mean, it was very, very heady. It was very, very fun. I had the instructor guide that went with me. Oh yeah, see, there's the low friction handling circuit. That is, how many times can you drift on that circle? It's a lot of fun to figure out how many times you can actually keep the car drifting in a full rotation.
So you get all kinds of, you get handling, you get friction handling, low friction handling, ice. Plate.
No, there's the kick plate. Yeah.
What's the kick plate? What do they do there?
So that's where, so you hit that part of the course that you have to, there's actually a sign, you have to be going this speed. I think it was 65 miles per hour, but don't quote me. And then hydraulic comes out either to the left or the right, and it kicks your car one direction or the other. Oh, wow. And so then you have to recover the car at that speed.
Wow.
You can see the spaghetti in the middle there, seeing how fast you can get through those curves. My instructor was a former police officer. And, what was fun for me is he kept saying, no, you can go faster. The car can handle it. And so, as we're going, so I mentioned the leaderboards. This is kind of an unofficial way to describe it, but as you're going through, all of a sudden you would, there'd be a car pulled off, and so you'd go by and keep going, and there'd be another car pulled off, and you'd keep going. And the guide had earpieces into the main tower, and he would say, okay, yes, that part of the course is open. You can go there. Okay, that, we're going to go ahead of this person here. When we pulled into at the end of the circuit, which was, I think we spent about 40 minutes in the car, felt like 9 minutes. It was so so fun. We got to the end of the course, and here's all these women are posing with their cars, and they're in leather pants and stilettos, and
All right.
and I'm horrified. I'm horrified. And I say to my guide, because now we're buddies, right? I say, oh my goodness, I'm embarrassed to get out of the car because I'm in like, I mean, it's not that I looked bad, but I was in white jeans and I don't know, Pumas probably. And I mean, I had come to drive, and and he said, you know, you have to understand, you know, the LA right now, this is the hottest date experience in LA. Though, you know, those girls came here for the date, not for the driving. Those were all the drivers of the cars that you passed. You know, there's not very many people that got to go on the part of the course that you got to go on. And so I just wore it. It's just my own Bev badge of honor. But wear the jeans. Sometimes in leadership, you got to wear the jeans.
Sometimes, well, my view, you got the best end of that deal. Getting in the car and actually proving your mettle.
One of the best ends of the deal is being able to relive it over and over. So thank you for asking me about it. It was an awful lot of fun, and I continue to be grateful I got to be there.
Oh, fantastic. And it is in Los Angeles. This one is.
That one is. I don't know where the other ones are, but I know that they're
Los Angeles, Alabama, and they've got them all over the place.
Yeah, so put it on your list, Jim.
Lake Tahoe. Oh my gosh.
That would be fun.
I'll be in Lake Tahoe in a couple of weeks.
I know they have an Porsche ice experience in Finland. And I think that would be awfully fun as well.
That's cool. Well, that's just like, wow.
No, you've got to do it. The other thing too, Jim, is you get to stand there with a catalog and pick which one you're going to take on the experience. It's really, really fun. You've got to do it.
Yep, it's on the list. It's on the list of definitely things that I'm going to do. That is cool.
No,
what I had on my list before was the Bob Bondurant School of High Performance Driving that's in Arizona.
Yes. Yeah, I am very interested in that as well. That's not high on my list, I admit, but it is on my list. It very well may happen. Yeah.
That one's great because they have a track like that, not as sophisticated as that one, but they have a great track. And then they have a big wide open area, and they put the car on a gantry, and the gantry raises and lowers the car.
Yes, yes.
And so as you're driving along, the car gets raised up a little bit, less friction on the tires, and it'll spin like you're on ice.
Whoa.
And so it simulates all that, but you're completely out in the open and there's nothing to hit. So you can practice to your heart's content and get really good at it without any risk of hurting anything or yourself.
Wow. That's more than I'd heard about it. The part that I'd heard about it is that you get custom fit into your own rider gear. So
yeah,
it's a good photo op.
Whole experience. I got to meet Bob Bondurant. He was one of my.
Really?
I love racing. I sat next to him on a Southwest plane one day. You know how you sit down on the plane and you're just chatting with somebody and you go, "Yeah, my name's Jim. What's yours?" He says, "Bob." "Hey, Bob." He gives me a card, and it's Bob Bondurant, and I'm like, I'm looking at him. It's like, no way. And he goes, "Yep." So we had it was fun.
Wow. Well, I'm the kind of person that would have been like, where did I know that name from? I know that name from somewhere, right?
Yeah. No, I just like, bam, wow, that's so cool. So
actually, one of my uncles, one of my dad's brothers, was a race car driver was an IndyCar race driver.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If I Google his name, his profile comes up, which always, feels like, oh yeah, I'm connected to someone sort of famous.
That's fun. Yeah, I love that. Formula One and Indy. I worked for a company for a number of years that was based in Indianapolis. So we used to go to the race. I got to take clients to the races.
That's brilliant.
That was so much fun. My gosh, we had a great time.
No, it's really great. I mean, and I think that's, like if we bring this back into leadership, I think when we honor those things that bring us so much joy and so much pleasure, we are closer to our values. We're closer to that alignment of where we really want to be. And when we set those big, beautiful goals, like, oh, I want to do that, or I want to do this, or, I want to do this sailing excursion here, or, climb that place, or learn that recipe, or master that language or that instrument. When we put that as a goal, it requires something from us. And we're not the same person day by day as we walk towards it. And it grows us. And we get to either decide to take all that loveliness in for us, and it becomes, a life of just pleasure seeking. But when we move it into leadership, it says, how can I use that to impact or inspire someone else? And it's really powerful. So yeah, go, for you, but also anyone that's listening, my clients, especially, they will all be hearing this as well. Go put that whatever you put on your vision board, or I use a focus binder instead of a vision board that I go through every day that has, page by page by page, what is most important to me, so that I never get off track. But when you put those big, beautiful things in front of you and say, that is the thing that I am called to be. Well, what do you mean it's a calling to go race a car? But as you move towards being the kind of person that could race that car, actually, one of my very first leadership conventions I ever went to was Jim Rohn. And
wow.
one of the things, yeah, definitely, yes, the 3 decades in the leadership realm is real. But one of the things he said from the stage that I've never forgotten, he said, who in the audience here wants to be a millionaire? And of course, we were all, yeah, we want to be a millionaire. It's like, I want you to be a millionaire too, but I don't want you to be a millionaire for the money. I want you to be a millionaire because of the kind of person you will become in your pursuit of becoming a millionaire. 30 years ago, a million was like 100 million is now, probably. Right. But who we become in the pursuit of those things that we desire, that bring us pleasure, that bring us joy. When we seek that relationship I'm in, I want to be the best relationship partner that person has ever freaking had. I want to be that person. I want to be the best parent. Sure, we can say, oh, I was supposed to be my kid's parent. Great. But I want to be that person that allows them to be as much of who they can be. Pursuing those callings on our hearts allows us to become the kind of people that we're supposed to be. And when we keep an eye out to who's within arm's reach, now we get to ripple that out. If I can do it, you can do it. If I can, whatever it is, I don't care how. There's no way to evaluate, to measure the size of the dream itself, whether you would say it's big or small. It shifts you to becoming more of the person you're supposed to be. So yeah, go move, make sure Porsche Experience gets high up on your list. You can have it for about $1,500 a person. It's doable. It's very doable. Get to pick your car and go out there for the day or for the hour.
Awesome. Whatever. Yeah, it's a blast. So I'm going to put up, let's see, I'm going to share your contact information.
There you go. There's me on stage, either receiving or delivering inspiration.
Love that shot. So, yeah, a conversation will help you see, hear, and feel what's possible in your business and leadership.
Yeah.
And I believe, Beverly Jolynn, that you are helping your clients achieve what they believed was impossible.
Sometimes it's true. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But it does all start with that, with that conversation. And my inbox is always open, and I mean that. I am not a gatekeeper. I believe that we are blessed to bless. And so, if you're listening to this and you think, well, Bev, I've got this little thing, or Bev, I've got this really big thing, start with a conversation. Give a call and let's see. Okay, you're here, and oh wow, you want to be there. That's cool. Tell me more. What might it look like to actually go there and accomplish that? I believe wholeheartedly, and I know I sort of said this at the beginning, but the vision that you were given wasn't given there just to tease and tantalize you. It was given you because it was believed it was the right vision for you to accomplish. So go get it. Go get it.
Thank you. So I have one final question before we say goodbye. You got time for one more?
Give me one more question, Jim. I'll see what I can do with it.
I warned you ahead of time.
I'm like a little bit nervous.
You're like, no, I'm out of here.
that pause just before you said, "Bev, I've got one more question." Like, oh dear.
You thought you were out of here. Here's the question. Taking a look at your whole life, and there's a lot of amazing things. But what was the boldest leadership decision that you've made, and what were the consequences?
Oh, wow. That's a fantastic question. And I've never, ever, I have a list of bold decisions, but the boldest decision.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, my mind is literally whipping through a whole bunch of bold decisions. Some of them didn't go well, by the way. I just
that's one.
Some of the bold decisions had more lessons in them than I would say. I'm just going to pick one. One of the boldest leadership decisions I ever made. Okay, I'm gonna highlight this one. Maybe it's not the boldest, but it's standing out.
Cool.
I told you that I'm certified scuba diver, and it's
okay.
I also had a fear of water for the longest time, a huge fear, like where I could actually accomplish a full shower without getting my face wet. Like, it was a huge fear of water.
Wow.
And I remember one time, deciding, okay, I'm going to conquer this fear, and going to get my scuba diving license was actually one of my strategies to conquer the fear. This was before I had decided to just submit to hypnosis, which was actually really more powerful in the end. But
good to know.
I remember, yes, I remember standing on the edge of the pool, and we had to pass the swim test in order to put on equipment and go scuba diving. And so we had to jump in and dive and swim to the other side and back again. And I had taken swim lessons as a child. The fear of water had come in my early teens. So I had the skills to swim, but standing on the edge of the pool, I realized that I had the feeling I could die if I dove into that pool. And it was literally a bold leadership decision to dive in. I wasn't leading anyone else at that moment but me. And I think as I sort of rifle through some of the leadership decisions that I've made, it always comes back to the leadership decision to lead me first. Am I going to choose to value where I want to go? And am I going to be willing to take that step and dive in? I do remember I was standing by a guy. It's so drilled into my mind that I remember his name, Mike. I was standing by a random Mike from scuba diving class. And Mike looked over at me and said, "You're freaking out." And I doubt I was able to respond. And he said, "Once you hit the water, you'll be fine." It was kind of that 1%. Once I do my 100 podcasts, I'll be fine. Once you hit the water, you'll be fine. And making that decision to, okay, I'm going to leap. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to do this thing. I am going to overcome this fear was that goal at that time. I think whenever we decide to lead ourselves first, it becomes a bold leadership decision. But the boldest leadership story will come out of the time when it was the hardest, when you almost turned away from making that leadership decision. And I'm going to spend the rest of the evening saying to myself, Was that really the boldest, Bev? So thanks for letting me off the hook by just saying what's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, I didn't want to make you suffer too much, but that was a fantastic story. It leaves me with, it's like the thought of don't end up at the end with the epitaph that says, I regretted this.
Yeah.
I regretted not doing this because I was afraid.
Yeah. No, I agree. I know that, it's hard to come to this age, I think, and not have a couple of things that it's too late for now. There's a couple things that, aren't going to happen, but it's never too late to get the rest of the list done. And for those of you that are listening, what is on your heart to do next, don't doubt yourself. It is the next thing. Go do it, get the help you need. And subscribing to a stream like this for bold leadership stories all the time, you're in the right place at the right time.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for sure. And go grab a time right now. Go to beverlyjolyn.me and go grab a time. This is the site. You can just go right to her calendar and pick a date and a time that you can spend some time, have a coffee chat with Beverly.
Yes.
And you won't regret it. It'll be an amazing experience.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm dead serious about that. I'll look forward to chatting with you. But the first step is, the first next step is to get on that calendar. And then we get to see what is your story going to be like? What is your bold leadership going to look like?
Fantastic.
Super.
Well, thank you, Beverly.
Jim, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed listening to other interviews that you've done on this series. I'm glad to be subscribed here, and I appreciate the fact that you are making our world a better place by highlighting leadership stories and allowing that ripple to get out just a little bit further. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Yeah. I'm going to end the stream. Hang on a second, if you can, and let's chat a little bit. I'm going to end the Instagram feed, and we're